And we are live. So, Leanne, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Brilliant. Me too. Me too. I've been waiting for this for ages. But listen, you are an international speaker. You're the author of, I think it's 3 books in a 5-book collection. And on top of that, you also find time to do lots of work helping people going through the difficult times that we're going through. And on top of that, you help people that have a book inside them actually get that book out and onto paper and into the shops.
Yes. Yeah, no, I know it sounds like a lot and it kind of is a lot, but I think the core theme of it all is we can't, we can't grow, we can't learn, we can't take steps until we sometimes see somebody ahead of us who's already done it, right? And I think about Roger Bannister, who, wanted to break the 4-minute mile, and he thought about it and he asked questions and he asked doctors and he asked nutritionists, and everybody said it cannot be done. So he started studying anatomy. He started studying nutrition. He started studying kinesiology. He broke the record of the 4-minute mile. And right on his tail was an Australian who then broke it as well, right? And they had the race of the century in Vancouver, Canada, against the 2 men on the planet who had, recorded breaking the 4-minute mile. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing and we don't know it's possible until we see someone who's done it. And even though it feels like everybody and their mother is writing a book, when you have to sit down in those dark corners of your life and pull out the stories, you have to sit in those dark corners of your house and work tirelessly into the night, while your family is asleep. You really think, I can't do this, right? And so my, kind of my mission is to light the way for people who want to do some of the things that I've done or want to take chances and they haven't seen it done before. And I don't have had to have done everything to, kind of guide and teach people to do the things that they want, because I think fundamentally getting things done follows a process, right? And you could be launching a podcast, you could be writing a book, you could be starting a business. There's a process and a journey that you go through. And I've just done enough of these journeys myself and helping others that I feel pretty confident that, we can tackle it together. And if I don't know things, I know people who know things, right? So not in a mafia kind of way, but just, pulling in experts in other spaces to just be like, what, I brought this person to this point in the journey, bring them to the next, bring them through the next part of their journey. I'm going to hand them off to you, your capable hands. Let's keep them going because I want them to actualize, right? I want them to find who they want to be and own that. The world does not need us hiding and scared and frightened and, dulling our light and hiding our amazingness. In actual fact, we need to crank it up.
Absolutely. Right? But how the heck do you fit it all in? Because you've got 3 kids as well, haven't you?
I do.
How do you cram all of this stuff into one life?
Yeah, I am extremely disciplined. I would say, like, my discipline is off the charts. So when I say I'm doing something, I am not scrolling on Instagram. I'm not, checking out what everyone's doing on YouTube. Like I'm very focused on the outcome. And part of that is my personality. Like I'm a little bit more of an academic. I'm a little bit more, kind of a productivity person in general, but I also have a medical condition which keeps reminding me, you don't have your whole life, right? Your whole life might be very short. So your whole life is not what you think it is. It's not 90 or 100 and you're not living to 104. So stay focused, right? Stay connected to what you're doing. Stay committed to your path. Stay true to your promises. And I think those guiding principles help me decide, yeah, it's 5 o'clock, everyone's asleep, it's a Saturday morning, and I have 4 hours. I can do many things. I could clean my house. I could, go play with the neighbor's dog. I could go through photo albums and reminisce. No, I could write a book, and that's what I do. I choose to, kind of continue to push through because I feel like I have a timeline that I'm trying to, to kind of conquer. And so that keeps me focused.
That's incredible. You mentioned you had this disease, this illness, and I believe was it back in 2006, you were given 5 years to live. How does someone deal with that? How did you deal with that?
It was the, you know, in when you're a writer and when you're a movie maker, they call it the dark night of the soul, right? It is that point in the movie in which you think all hope is lost and all possibilities are ended, and you really have to find it within yourself to overcome the monster or beat the villain or whatever it is that, you know, the scene requires. Yeah, that dark night of the soul lasted, you know, for many years for me, because I suffered a brain crash when I was pregnant with my third child. My husband was traveling to California at the time. So we had just moved to the state that we're in. I was alone with the two toddlers, pregnant with the third. And I got up in the middle of the night to go to the washroom and I blacked out. And when I came to, which was pretty quickly, I was frozen. And so my body had just completely shut down and I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't get up. And I begged and I pleaded and I cried and I, you know, panicked and all of the things. And about 5 hours later, you know, this flooding heat came over me. Everything started to spin, but I could move. So I got up, I got dressed, I woke up the toddlers, threw them in the van, typed in hospital in the GPS because we had just moved here. I didn't even know where the hospital was. And we went down to see what happened. And that really set off this 8-month experience of every test possible. So before the baby was born, it was obviously non-invasive testing. And then once the baby was born, the testing intensified. And that November of 2006, they called me back to the hospital and said, listen, we don't know what it is, but looking at all of these scans, we know that you're going to die from this. And we think it's going to be within 5 years.
Wow.
So go home, hug your kids, get your life in order, and, you know, don't feel stressed about it. Like, don't accelerate your demise. Slow down your life, you know, take very good care of yourself and enjoy your kids. Like, create a legacy that you want to leave for them. And so for the first 3 years, I just started to die. Like, everything hurt. I had this condition. I was, you know, on all of these medications. I was injecting myself weekly and I was crying all the time. I was a crappy mom because I was so angry at the world and I was frustrated with them, and everything was just so hard. And then I just decided one day, no, no, this isn't how the story ends. This isn't how the story ends. They don't even know what it's called. They don't know anything about this. They're just guessing. And that's no different than somebody, you know, who might read tarot cards, who would never pick them up before. They're just guessing. Like, you know, they're not experienced in my specific thing. They don't know. They're not in me. They don't know how badly I want to live. They don't know how hard I'm going to fight for this life. And so I started doing everything differently. And I really think that was the moment that I saved myself. I saved my family. I taught my kids how to live with purpose and passion. I learned how to prioritize things that really mattered and, you know, really discard the things that I don't care about. And it just is this constant reminder of, if this is my last day, is this how I want to spend it? You know, if this is my last lesson to them, is this the lesson I want to teach them? And it's made me keep myself in check. You know, if I feel like I want to yell at them because their rooms are messy, I don't. I'm like, you do you, right? Like, if this is how you want to create space in your life, is this the mental clutter and the physical clutter you want to be in? Go ahead, right? And when you're ready to come out of it, let me know. I'll show you some strategies. But I have no, you know, I have no design to kind of control how you live. If this makes you happy, go do it. And within a couple of weeks, everybody just got themselves organized and they started to clean themselves. They started to participate in chores around the house. You know, they were doing things spontaneously. And I thought, oh, interesting, because I created the environment to teach them how to feel safe and whole and, you know, calm and in control. And they recognize their own out of controlledness. So, it continues to haunt me. Obviously, I still have this condition, but it fuels me to never give up, right? And so it really is, what is the promise I made myself, right? And that is to use everything I have, to make the world a better place. And that world might just be my family. That world might just be my bedroom, right? That world might be my community. It might be my kids' school. It might be a conference that I'm teaching at. It might be a course that I give. Can I leave, my fingerprints and create some ripple of change that makes it easier for someone else, makes it less painful for someone else, or makes it, more comfortable for someone else, or makes somebody feel like they have the power within them to do it too. Like they look at me and think, my God, this woman has all this going on and she's doing this. I can do it. Like I'm smarter than this, and I'm better than this, and I'm stronger than this, and I might have more resources than her. Yeah, I'm totally going to be brave. And I hope that, is part of the legacy that I've left for, just the people that I've touched.
It's an incredible story. But I've got a question for you. You said that kind of one day you had this thought. Now, was that a kind of like an Einstein moment, or had it been kind of leading up to from something for a little while? Because a lot of the stories that I read, people say, I had this thing and it just suddenly came at me. But when you dig a bit deeper, there's been a series of things that have led to the big moment. So what was it with you?
It's interesting because when you say people have that thing, I have that thing with the 5 seasons. It really was a fire hose of inspiration. And I wrote the entire outline in an hour. Wow. I wrote almost the whole book. It came to me out of nowhere. It was flooding me. So that's that. And I know that feeling because it was powerful and divine and all of that. The day that I decided that I wasn't going to be dying the way that they said I was, it wasn't actually from within, it came from without. So I was in my home, my mother-in-law had been visiting, and I was really, really struggling. My daughter wanted to open a cheese string, and those little plastic contain, those little wrapped cheese strings. And so she came to me, she was about, 4 or 5 at the time. And she's like, Mommy, can you help me open this cheese string? And I'm like, of course I can. I'm a capable woman. I can. But I didn't know that the plastic had been fused together. So there was no point in which you could peel the plastic apart from the other side of the plastic. And so I was twisting it and I was squeezing it and I was getting hot and I was getting flushed and I was getting panicked. And I thought, oh my God, how can I not open a cheese string? And I'm twisting it and it's melting in my hand and I'm pulling at it and I'm trying to break it open. And she's like, Mommy, it's okay. It's okay. Mommy, it's okay. I don't want cheese anymore. And I'm like, you're getting cheese, sweetheart. Just wait a moment. And I'm struggling and I'm hot and I'm sweaty and I'm panicking now that I've lost the ability to open a cheese string. And I put the cheese string down on a counter and I grab the cleaver and I chop it in half and the cheese goes flying across the room. And I go and look at her and I'm just a hot, sweaty mess of panic. And her little eyes were almost as big as her whole face. And she looked terrified. And she was like, I don't want cheese. And she ran away. And my mother-in-law was watching all of this. And she was just very kind and thoughtful. But she just said, look, don't worry. When you're not here, like I'll raise the kids. I'll step in and I will be their mom. And I was like, that was the moment I was like, I'm sorry. It didn't occur to me that they would need somebody after I was gone. And she just was like, I'll do it. And I thought, hell no, I'm raising my children. I am their mother. I get to choose what their life looks like. I get to put my values and my beliefs and my lessons for them to learn, not you, right? Like, this is my job. I am not going to let you take it away from me. And she wasn't taking it away, but just the thought of somebody else stepping in and, kind of driving their lives and driving their futures was enough to wake me up. And I woke up that day and I was just like, hell to the no. I threw out all of the syringes, all of the vials, all of the tablets, all of the patches, everything they had given me to try to, kind of create a longer, more healthier existence until my death. Gone, thousands of dollars in the trash. And I went for a walk and I screamed at the sky. And I'm sure my neighbors, were close to calling emergency services, but I had to get it out. I had to get it out that it wasn't fair and it wasn't right and it wasn't okay. And I'm going to take back control, right? This is the day I decide what my life is going to be. And I made some pretty big promises to myself that day. And, you know, slowly and sometimes quickly, I work through what those promises were. And, you know, am I living up to them myself? And sometimes, yes, right? Like I published 3 books pretty quickly. I am, you know, building this fantastic business. So on that part, yes. But there are things that I still don't feel brave about, right? And I still stumble and I still trip up myself. And I think, no, this can't be for me. This life can't be for me, right? I am sick or I am dying. And, you know, it comes up in the weirdest places. So I had a woman contact me to speak at her conference. And we talked about it. And she's like, Leanne, you are perfect. Your story is amazing. Your entrepreneurial journey is inspiring. You are making money, which is what we want women to know, is they actually can make money. And money is energy, and energy is power, and power is choice. And we want all of this for our people. And I said, oh my gosh, we are absolutely on the same page. Sign me up. And she said, great. How about December 2021? And my first thought was, oh my God, I might be dead. You know, like I can't commit to something 2 years in advance. Who do you think I am? You know, like Martha Stewart or Michelle Obama, like, you know, just squeeze me in next week. I'm here right now. And she's like, no, this is perfect. It fits with this launch. And I mean, they have this massive strategy. It's a huge corporation. And my secret fear was, oh God, please help me live that long. I mean, I'm healthy, I'm doing my best, but we just don't know, right? And so those fears that live inside of us, whether it's a medical fear, a poverty fear, you know, a worthfulness fear, any of those things that we, you know, we all have our own baggage, whatever it is, they crop up in places and times that you have no idea, you know, that they live there. And you think, oh yeah, see, there she is, the little voice that says, don't do it, you can't do this. You know, you aren't good enough for this, or you aren't strong enough or healthy enough or thin enough or, you know, smart enough or educated enough, whatever that enoughness is, we all have it. And so that, you know, the promise to myself is when she shows up, I calm her down, you know, and I just remind her of all of the great things to come, right? And if I'm to be here to deliver those things, if I'm here for those things, then I'm here 100%. And that kind of is the mantra to carry me through.
It's incredible. I'm sure you know Tony Robbins has this mantra called turning fear into power. And it seems from what you're saying that when your mother-in-law saw you getting yourself into this state to try and open this cheese straw thing, that was like an instant bang of reframing your situation from one of woe is me, feeling sorry for myself, to actually, no, I'm still here. I'm going to be a mother and I'm going to stay here as long as I bloody can. I'll do what it takes.
Yeah.
Would you agree that that was what happened? You reframed your situation.
1,000%, if that's even possible. I had spent so much time before that trying to get, you know, my house in order, right? So if something were to happen to me, my baseboards would be clean and my boxes would be, you know, purged and my closet would be, you know, tidy. And I don't care about that. I don't think I've cleaned my baseboards since that day 14 years ago. I couldn't give 2 hoots about what my baseboards look like, because they don't meet the priorities that I set for my life, right? So if it comes down to playing with my kids, and my kids are teenagers now. So if it comes down to cleaning the house or playing basketball with them, oh, I'm gone. I can't even play basketball, but I'm going, right? If it comes down to watching a movie with them, or, you know, hand washing some specialized pans, no, everything goes in the dishwasher, or I throw them, you know, I give them away. I don't want anything that takes away from, you know, the things that bring me joy and pleasure. And I mean, I have things I have to do that I don't really like, but if I can choose not to do them, if I can purposefully decide this is not how I spend my time, then I'm going to make the choice that makes me happy, right? And that typically involves doing something for other people, right? It isn't typically I'm going to go be, you know, kind of hoard all my goodness and keep myself hidden away. It typically is, how do I give more away?
And does this feeling of only doing what you want to do and helping people, does that kind of feed into your entrepreneurial journey as well?
I think it is the fuel behind it for sure, because I, ran a lifestyle conference for moms for many years up here in the Pacific Northwest. And we had women who hadn't sat down in like 3 weeks showing up and saying, this was the longest I've ever sat and had a hot cup of tea.
Wow.
And I think, and I mean, we hear these stories, but I just think, when do you matter? Right. And so when I work with entrepreneurs now, I think, what matters to you, right? If paying your bills and just getting by, is the goal, then you'll meet that goal and nothing more. But if it matters to you to give back to your community or save for your kids' education or take those trips, then we're going to work towards those things, right? So it really is getting crystal clear on what kind of life you want to live. And I think a lot of people come to me and hire me because they're envious that I can make these kinds of choices. And I am nobody special. I am just a person who sets some goals and who really focuses on meeting them, right? There's nothing magical about my abilities, but I think people don't give themselves permission, A, to dream, what is that life I want? Or B, do I have what it takes to reach that? Do I really have what it takes, right? They haven't collected enough evidence of their own awesomeness. And this comes out a lot. One of the things I promised myself when I was sick was, I knew I wouldn't be able to live long enough to give my kids the world, give them everything I wanted. But I thought I could show them the world. And so I made a promise to visit 50 countries before I turned 50, because I wanted a goal that was past my 5-year death date. So I wanted to shoot for the stars. I wanted something big and audacious and almost, impossible to reach. To get 5 people around the planet is not cheap. It's not easy. It's not fast. It's none of those things. But I'm like, I want to show them the world. And I became a beast at, meeting this goal. And this past January, we returned from country 49.
Wow.
And country
Amazing.
50 was this summer, right? And so I continued to push forward. I took us to places that we would have never gone. My kids have seen things they would have never, understood or seen. And initially it was really hard for them because they're like, Mommy, I want the expensive toys. I want the fancy phone. I want the, pricey Lululemon yoga pants kind of thing. And I just said, Nicole, or kids, we don't spend our money that way, right? I want to show you the world. This is my gift to you, that where we live is not indicative of what everybody experiences. Like, you are blessed and privileged, and I want to show you the rest of the world. And it came to pass when my daughter was a freshman in high school and they needed to write for language arts, what would be a dream trip? And child by child stood up and said, oh, I want to visit the Eiffel Tower. And Nicole thought, oh, I've done that. I want to, I want to go over here and see this. Oh, I've done that. I want to sail the seas of the Mediterranean. Oh, I've done that. I want to go and see, the Mona Lisa. Or I want to go see the Louvre. I want to go to Russia and, whatever. She's done all that, right? And so she just thinks, oh my gosh, it hit her like a ton of bricks that, my priority had opened up a whole new world for her that she hadn't even seen it, even though she was living it, right? She was doing all the things that other people only dreamed about doing. And it kind of fueled her to say, okay, let me set my own dreams. Those were my mom's dreams to, kind of get us around the world. What kind of things do I want to do? Because if she can do it with a bunch of us who were, difficult and challenging and, grumpy all the time, what can I do for my own life? And so the ripples go far. And I'm so proud of, kind of creating those ripples and being a part of, the part of the world that can do that.
And what you've done is you've created experiences rather than giving them things, because things just get worn out and thrown away and forgotten, but
Totally.
experiences are with us for forever.
Yeah.
And they can lead from one experience to another. Like you said about your daughter, she's
Yeah.
seen what you can do, which now opens up the world to
Yeah.
what she can do.
Yeah. And I've asked her, at the time I would say, what did you get for your 8th birthday? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know. And I said, where were we for your 11th birthday? And she's like, Sweden. I'm like, yeah, we were. Yeah, we were in Sweden, right? I mean, it plants these milestones throughout your life. And I think that's what life is, right? It's a series of planting milestones. And some of them are planted in shallow soil and they fall over and you don't hold on to those memories. But the ones that are pivotal to who you are the ones that plant deep. Now, this could be something positive, or it could be the most traumatic time of your life, right? I mean, my brain crash and many milestones in that experience are planted deep. When I look at the calendar and it's November 17th, my stomach falls through the bottom of my body. And I think, this is the day that I sat in that doctor's office and they gave me 5 years to live. Right. And even though it's been 14 years, I know it's coming in a month and 2 days that I'm going to have that feeling again of, oh my God, who was I at that time? And have I done enough with this life that I've been given? Have I created enough love? Have I spread enough kindness? Have I shared enough wisdom in this time that I have? Because, this life is borrowed, right? This life is a borrowed experience. And the collection of energy and wisdom and experiences and teachings that I have inside of me is not mine to take to the next space, right? It's to give away and to share right now. And so that is kind of the mission in all the things I do, is if I have it in me, it's mine to give away. It's selfish and irresponsible to hoard it for myself, right? Like, let me build the best business for me. Let me build the best family. Let me build the best relationship. No, let me write books about it. Let me help other people, because it's not mine to keep. I'm not King Midas sitting on my pile of gold, that's just crazy.
So listen, Leanne, we've talked about
Yeah.
your business, but what is your business? How do you help people? And
Right.
how did your journey start?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I was, running this lifestyle conference for moms, and there'd be, 250 women multiple times coming through, and we had spas and, vendors and speakers and the whole shebang. And I started to get this feeling that I wanted to be on stage. And I was envious of the people that I was hiring to be on stage. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, I need to look at what that is for me. I was never a public speaker. I was a teacher for many years, but I never was a public speaker. And it just grew from there. So when I had my fire hose inspiration moment, it was about the 5 seasons. And I wrote that, it started out as a story for me to understand, how do I show up for my kids and stay in that place of connection and love and peace and teaching, right? Because children are not to be controlled and dominated and, kind of overpowered. They're to be taught, right? So they can go out and do good and be good in the world. And so the 5 seasons of connection to your child was the first book that I wrote. And when I announced it at the conference, people wanted to buy it. And then they read it and they wanted to hire me, help them create, summer experiences in their book, understand their winter storms, right? And so I use the 4 seasons that we know in nature. Winter is that cold, dark, isolated, frigid time where you are not connected to your kids at all. And then we spring clean, right? So how do we clean up the mess that winter left behind? How do we repair the damage? How do we reconnect with our kids? How do we bridge the gap and apologize and forgive and, give love again? How do we help them find their wholeness in that kind of fractured experience? And then summer is the best it can be, right? You want to be in summer. That is the goal. It is whatever it is for you, but it is the best it could be. And then fall is your slipping. Bugs are crawling into your garden and pests are eating away at your summer blooms and you're slipping. Something is happening. You're yelling at them. You're tired. You're stressed out. There's somebody is sick and everybody's a little bit more manic or something. That's fall. And then the 5th season, which doesn't exist in the world, obviously, is called the crossroads. And that's really the power season, where at every interaction you decide, am I going to winter or am I going to summer? Like, am I going to yell at them and bark at them and shame them and humiliate them and make fun of them and call them names? Or am I going to provide a space of grace and explain what I want to see, walk them back to the path of summer, give them time to figure it out, give them agency to control their own experiences, you know, apologize and make amends on their time, right? Like, what path am I taking here? And so after the book came out, people just started hiring me to coach them on the 5 seasons. And inevitably people would say, you know, this worked for my kids. Does it work? Like, if I feel like I'm, you know, screwing up in my life, like, would this work for me personally? And so I wrote the 5 seasons of connection to your business brilliance as a mindset book to guide people out of imposter syndrome and fears of failure and, you know, just disconnection from their purpose and thinking that they have nothing to offer the world. And of course, we circled back to the family with book number 3, which is how do you create connection with your love partner? So the 5 seasons of connection to your love partner really goes back to the family unit and strengthens the love relationship between 2 people, right? Because it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you come home at the end of the day and your marriage is in crisis, you are not whole. You are not happy. You are not feeling fulfilled. All the money in the world will not fill the hole inside your soul that tells you your relationship is in the toilet, you know, that you don't even have a partner, you have a roommate or a stranger in your life, really. So those 3 books are the first 3 in the series, just to kind of start hitting the big, you know, kind of the big 3, your love life, your personal life, and your professional life. And so my business is coaching, my business is speaking, and I teach around the world strategies from the 5 seasons and really the mental model, right? And oftentimes I will wish that I could sell essential oils, or I wish that I could, you know, sell knitted mittens for kittens or something very specific, but I'm selling a new way of thinking. And that is a big responsibility, and it is a big job, right? To change people who are in the process of arguing with their children. Oh, you're in winter right now, so let's spring clean, you know, this right now in this moment, and get people to kind of change the way they see interactions with their families, or, you know, their own negative self-talk. That takes a lot of heavy lifting. So my business, you know, is about education, really. How do we change the way people think about their lives and their interactions, to stay in the driver's seat, right? To get back to summer. And what does that even mean for them?
I love the metaphor of the seasons because it's easily understood by everyone, because everybody
Right.
has a season, you
Right.
know, winter, spring, summer, autumn, and so on. And you
Yeah.
can equate that in different ways into life, as it been a young person, been a, you know, sort of leaving school, leaving home for the first time, and then
Yeah.
middle age and sort of starting a family, and then middle age, and then kind of the last season, but
Yeah.
also of, you know, like you say, not getting on with your kids, getting back, wanting, I think that's the important thing, is wanting to reconnect with your kids. And like you say, doing the spring cleaning and starting again. And the same with business, because businesses go through seasons as well, as you know. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of people out there now that are really going to be struggling, and they're probably in autumn looking at a really harsh winter. What
Yeah.
would you say to someone? How could you help people reframe the situation that they're in now, or the situation they believe they're going to be in very, very soon?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple of different ways that I tackle this type of thing, right? So we start with ourselves first. Like, what is our own personal winter? Our own personal winter is filled with worry and doubt and anxiety and fear and anger and jealousy and rage, right? So that is where we come from. And when we feel those things, we have to recognize what is the root of that, right? What is at the base of all of those emotions? And oftentimes it is a feeling of being out of control. Okay, so if it is a feeling of being out of control in some way, then the spring cleaning strategy is to find places that you can exert control, right? So what do you have control over? You have control over your time and your thoughts. You have control over your if you want to create a side hustle, if it's kind of in a professional setting, you want to start doing something on the side. If it's a personal relationship, you have agency over how you show up in a relationship, how you speak to people, how you interpret what they say. If you take things personally and get hurt and, go into the blame and shame model, Or if you reflect back and say, I hear what you're saying and I feel differently, but thank you for sharing, and walk away, right? So if you need to take control, what does that look like for you? Because only you know what the out of controlness is. So when I work with people, we always start with defining what winter is, right? If it's a professional winter, perhaps somebody just got fired and they feel like, oh my God, I'm never going to find a job. You know, you and I just talked before about one position, you know, garnered 28,000 applications for the job, right? I'm never going to find a job. Okay, so what do we know about you? What do we know about your skills? What do we know about your ability to, you know, organize and, you know, prioritize things? What kind of technical skills do you have? What kind of people skills do you have? Let's spring clean your resume and create the strongest you can, right? And so everything can be spring cleaned, because every winter storm cannot last forever, right? It is, you know, there will be an end to every storm. It's just a matter of how long you're willing to sit there and be angry and sad and disempowered before you take action, right? For me, I sat in my winter storm for 3 years thinking I was dying before I took action, before I kind of spring cleaned my own mess. But now, after, you know, 10 or 12 years of doing this work, I sit in winter for about 4 minutes, you know, and I'm just like, okay, wait a minute. So I go into the hole, it's dark, I'm angry, or I'm reactive, and I'm blaming other people, or I'm holding someone else responsible. And it's like, girlfriend, no. All right, what do we need to do here? We're going to spring clean. What does that look like? And I take action, right? Because spring cleaning is an active, you know, it's an active thing. You can't spring clean in your mind just by thinking about it. No, it's get out the cleaning materials, put in some elbow grease, build the thing, you know, pull out all the weeds. Like, you have to actively get hot and sweaty, and it's going to be hard work. And that's the power in knowing that you can control, you know, many things in your life that you feel are out of control. Take the action and see what you can, you know, accomplish when you decide to get in there 100%.
Would you agree that, or disagree maybe, that we are where we are today because of every single decision we've made up until this moment? And once we take responsibility for that, we liberate ourselves. Because if we spend so much time blaming others or blaming circumstances, blaming this, you could have spent your entire life right up until today blaming the illness for you feeling weak and tired and unhappy and angry, not being able to open a cheese straw, but you reframe that. So do you think that it's important to take responsibility for our actions right up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And Paul, yes. So I think people sometimes get tripped up with this, though, because they think, I didn't ask, you know, for my partner to smack me around. I didn't ask for my car to be hit in the parking lot. I didn't ask to be fired. I didn't ask, you know, for all of these things that have happened to me, right? So it is hard for people. And there is a place in which they think, no, that absolutely isn't true. I did not want any of that to happen. And I think there are things that, you know, we can attract energetically. And I do think that we tolerate way more than we think. So in a place where we think it's not our fault, we are tolerating it, right? So I am right now working with a client, and she is in dire straits financially. And she's like, but I didn't ask, you know, for this loan to, you know, be recalled. And I didn't ask for, you know, I didn't ask for my car to be repoed. Correct. You didn't want those things. And when you had money in your life, you didn't put aside money to repay the loan. You bought the Coach bag. You went to the, you know, to the Las Vegas trip, right? So you tolerated your risk, and you then kind of crumbled under the weight of the recall of that risk, right? So it's not that we, you know, can't hold other people responsible for crappy things that happen to us, but we have to take full responsibility from the moment that we feel brave enough to do it, and even 5 minutes before we feel brave enough. But oftentimes people, you know, are still in that shame and blame, you know, kind of mindset. But once we decide to take radical responsibility for who we are now, yes, your parents might have, you know, done terrible things. You might have had a horrible experience. You might have been bullied in middle school. Absolutely, all of that can be true. And that doesn't define who you are. That doesn't outline the boundaries of your body and your soul and your mind and your possibility, right? Those are fake lines that somebody else drew, and you have the eraser, erase them and draw new lines. Define who you are and what you want with your life. If you are disadvantaged in some way, your climb up the mountain will be harder. You're not going to be climbing a hill in the, in the meadows of Scotland. You're going to be facing Everest, right? So your hill might look differently, and the things that you carry up that hill might be heavier. But when you look at what you're carrying, which might be, childhood trauma and abuse or neglect or poverty or any of those types of things, you can put them down, right? You don't have to carry those boulders in your backpack up Mount Everest anymore. So responsibility is about being in the here and now and moving forward. And I could not do what I do if I didn't believe in, the philosophy that you just said, because I've had crappy things happen my whole life. I've had terrible things happen to me, and that's not who I am, right? Doctors, many of them have told me, you are dying, you are dying, you are dying this year. Like, it's coming, it's coming. I still had to decide, right? I still had to take responsibility. I still had to get enough sleep. I still had to say, no, I'm not going to do all the things you expect me at the school auction. I'm not giving my energy that way. Yes, I'm going to spend more on healthy food. I'm not going to buy crappy food and fill my body with, preservatives and junk food. Yeah, I'm going to spend more food and buy healthy things, or spend more money and buy. Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking responsibility for my body and my life. And there's costs to that for sure. But when you want it bad enough, you'll pay that price.
I think one thing that people sort of get stuck with is that I'm the first person this has happened to. Nobody's gone through this before, which is complete rubbish. There's always somebody that's had to climb Mount Everest with 2 packs and only one leg, or blind. And I think what people could do to help themselves is to go looking for those people that have been on that journey before. Nelson Mandela is a brilliant example. He spent 23, 27 years in jail, and he came out, and the first thing he did was pretty much say, I forgive you. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've been in jail, it's done, it's over, go on, let's move forward.
Right.
People need to be able to not only take responsibility, but accept they're not unique in that sense. Yeah. Somebody else has been through that situation, and we can learn from that and take courage for that somebody else has actually carved a route for us to follow.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to the thing that we were talking about at the beginning, which is, why it's important for people to show up in their life, right? Why it's important for them not to stay in the dark corners of their life, why it's important for them to pick the dark corner of their bedroom and start writing that book or preparing that speech or applying for that, that opportunity. Because if we don't see stories, if we don't see Roger Bannister run the 4-minute mile, we literally think it can't be done. So by me putting out my story, perhaps it inspires somebody else who has battled cancer, or whose husband has ALS, or whose child died of sudden infant death syndrome, right? And they are trying to grapple with the grief of that or the process of that. So then they go and write a book or tell a story or go on a podcast, and then somebody hears them, right? Like, that's literally the ripple, right? So what you and I are doing right here is dropping the stone into the pond, right? And whoever hears this podcast, hopefully they say, wait a minute, I have a story. My experience is this. How do I share that story? And then someone else hears their story and says, oh my gosh, me too. My dad was a fighter pilot who came back from war, with all of these ghosts and villains and monsters in his head. And it really hurt our family, us too. My God, and then this was my experience on top of it, right? And that's how it goes. So if we never had story, we would have stagnation, right? We would never know what's possible or how we are the same or how we can do things differently. Somebody might hear this and say, oh my gosh, that Leanne, I would never do what she's doing, but I want to do this other thing, right? Yes, do your thing, don't do what everybody else is doing if it doesn't fit. But this is how it is such a critical piece of my work to know your seasons, right? Like, who are you in every season? And then how can you bloom, right? How boring of a field it would be if we were all, I'm looking at tulips here. If we were all tulips are gorgeous, but if we were all tulips, we would never know the gorgeous of a calla lily. We would never know the smell of a rose. We would never know the sight of wildflowers growing in a mountain, in Austria in the spring. We need everybody's own sense of beauty, right? We need all of their gifts. And that's how we kind of raise, they call it raise the vibe, or, kind of a rising tide raises all boats. Like, we have got to do this together.
Absolutely. What other projects have you got going on right now? Because before we went live, we were talking about you're working with some guys on YouTube and helping out in a different way. Very briefly, kind of run us through what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so I had reported on my Facebook page that an article came out this week that 865,000 women left the workforce last month because jobs were evaporating, childcare had fallen through, schools are still closed here. Like, it is just an absolute, they're calling it the female recession, right? Where women are leaving 4 times as many, jobs as men are leaving at this point. And I needed to do something, right? There are women who have skills and abilities and talents and experience, and they're now sitting at home without paychecks and without hope and, without a purpose of what to do in their lives. So we want to help them set up businesses. And so the Fish Tank is the project that I'm launching with another entrepreneur. And we are finding people who are wanting to start businesses, or maybe they've dabbled a little bit, but now they want to get serious and they want to start making money and they want to start bringing in support for their family. They want to start supporting, causes that they care about and community services that they want to support. But it all starts with, kind of the movement of money. So they need to earn it to be able to give it away.
Absolutely.
And, back to the Midas analogy, like, I don't want to help somebody make money so they can put it in their basement and, sit on it and count it. No, put it back in the community. How can you then, loan money to somebody else, or pay, donate to the food bank? There are people starving. How do you support organizations that do the charity work that you want? So the Fish Tank is really an incubator. It's a safe space for people to get business coaching from business coaches. I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time, for free. So come in, let's figure out what your blocks are. Let's break them down, set you on a path. I mean, if I do anything, it's get people moving, right? So I'm not the kind of business coach who just sits with you for 6 months and listens to you, your sad stories. Tell me your story, and then let's break it down and figure out how do we use that for passion and fuel to get you to the next step. Because I don't have time, I don't have time, right? Like, I have a brain condition. It is degenerative. I don't know. I mean, none of us know when we're going to go, but I really live with the idea that it could be any day. And so I'm very, activated to make as much change as I can. So yeah, the Fish Tank is just this brand new little safe place. There's no sharks. No one's going to come and, bite you and make you bleed. No, let's get you set up for success. So we'll see where it goes.
It sounds fabulous. I've got one more question, but before I ask you it, what's the best way people can reach you, to reach out to you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook at Leanne Kabat. I'm on LinkedIn. And my 2 websites now are fishtankshow.com and 5seasonslife.com. So any of those ways, I'm highly accessible because, this is my life, right? Like, how can I give it all away? I can't then hide. So people can find me.
Well, I'll put all those links in the show notes as well. So my final question is, you mentioned at the start of the conversation that you had this goal of 50 countries before you hit 50, and you're pretty much there. Okay. Yeah. What is next? What have you set yourself as your next kind of challenge, not business wise, but for Leanne and her family and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's actually a personal goal for Leanne. So my kids are teenagers. I see them as, almost at the stage of grown and flown. So I feel very proud of the work that I've done to help prepare them for living, a whole and healthy life. But for Leanne, my next goal is taking a story from my teenage years, and it's a pretty tumultuous crazy, you know, it's just one of those stories that people cannot believe is true. And I want to publish it. And the big goal is I want it, you know, I want it bought by Netflix or Hulu or Amazon. I want it turned into a mini series. It's a great story. And so the big dream is to write some fantastic book and have it sold to be made into a mini series. So
That is an amazing goal. That is absolutely brilliant. But I wouldn't expect any less from the conversations we've had here. And that's a fabulous idea. It's a fabulous dream to go for. Listen, you know, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but I think we have to end it at some stage. But I want to get you back on the show again to talk about this, what you've just said, this from, you know, teenage to now, this second story that you've just kind of hinted at. You know, so
absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. And I'm sure the listeners are going to absolutely love your story. So
Oh, Paul, thank you so much. You've made my week, actually. This is a highlight for me for sure. So thank you so much for having me.
And I'll speak to you again soon, without a doubt. Bye
Thank
now.
you.